Some people come into your life and just make it feel safer. Not because they fix anything, not because they have all the answers, just because they are there. Her brother was that kind of person. She had always been the quiet one, the kind of person who sits at the edge of a room and watches everything instead of joining in. She was not sad about it. That was just her. She liked the quiet. She liked her books, her routines, her own little world. It was enough. Enough. But her brother, he was everything she was not. He was the loudest laugh at every family dinner, the one who remembered every birthday without being reminded, the one who would call their mother in the middle of a busy afternoon just to say he was thinking about her. People loved being around him. He had this warmth, real, genuine warmth, that made you feel like you mattered the moment he looked at you. The two of them were close in the way only siblings who actually like each other can be. Not just love, like they chose each other. They talked about everything. Small things, embarrassing things, the kinds of things you cannot say to anyone else. He never made her feel strange for being quiet. She never made him feel like too much for being loud. Whose feet, without trying. It was a family wedding when it happened. Nothing special about that night. Just the usual noise, the usual crowd, people moving around with plates of food and cups of chai. Someone was playing a piano in the corner of the hall. Not professionally, just softly, under the noise, like background music nobody had asked for. Most people were not listening. But her brother stopped completely. Mid-sentence, mid-bite. He just stopped. He set his fork down slowly and turned toward the sound. His whole body went still, and his face changed in a way she had never seen before. All the noise, all the movement, all the chaos of the room, none of it reached him. He was just somewhere else. She watched him for a long moment, not saying anything. Later that night, the two of them slipped away from the crowd and sat outside on the steps. The air was cool. The noise from inside was muffled now. He looked up at the sky and said, almost to himself, piano music does something to you, like it goes past all the noise in your head and finds the part of you that is just tired, and it sits with you there. She smiled. Then you should learn. He shook his head. No, not me. My hands do not have that kind of patience. He glanced at her hands resting in her lap. Just for a second. Then he looked back at the sky. But yours do. You should learn. Play something for me one day. He said it simply, quietly, like it was just a passing thought, but something in his voice made it feel like more than that. She did not say yes. She did not say no. She just smiled and looked out at the dark street in front of them, and the moment moved on the way moments do. But the word stayed. She did not know why. Te hus die demons. Passed life moved forward, and then one day, without any warning, it did not. It started small. Headaches that would not go away. Tiredness that sleep could not fix. He laughed it off at first, said he was just getting old, said they all needed more rest, but the headaches kept coming. The tiredness got worse, and then came the part nobody was laughing about anymore. The doctors, the tests, the waiting rooms with plastic chairs, and the smell of antiseptic, and the kind of silence that sits heavy on your chest. And then the news, the kind of news that does not destroy you in one moment, but instead settles into your bones slowly, quietly, until one day you realize it has changed everything. It was not a death sentence. The doctors made that clear. But it was serious. Serious enough that every ordinary day suddenly felt like something you should not have been taking for granted. She did not cry in front of anyone. That was not who she was. But at night, lying alone in her apartment, staring at the ceiling, she felt a fear she did not have words for. Not just fear of losing him. Fear of all the things she had always said she would do later. Fear of how many laters she had already wasted. And then one night, she thought of the steps outside the wedding hall. The cool air. The piano drifting out from inside. And his voice. Play something for me one day. She sat up in bed. She did not think too hard about it. She was afraid that if she thought too hard, she would find a reason to say no. So she picked up her phone, searched for beginner piano lessons nearby, found a teacher who had evening slots, and paid for the first month before she could change her mind. She told nobody. Not her mother. Not her friends. Not her brother. It was going to be a surprise. That was the plan. She would learn a complete song, from start to finish. No stopping, no stumbling. And one day she would just sit down beside him and play it. No big announcement. No explanation. Just the music. The first lesson was humbling. Her fingers did not want to cooperate. They were stiff and slow, and they kept landing on the wrong keys. The teacher was kind about it, but she could see it herself. She was not a natural. Not even close. She drove home that first night, wondering what she had gotten herself into. But she went back the next week. And the week after that, she practiced every night after dinner, sitting in front of the small keyboard she had bought and placed on her dining table. Some nights the neighbors probably wanted to scream. Some nights she wanted to scream. But she kept going. Because every time she thought about stopping, she thought about him at that wedding, completely still, completely at peace. And she kept going. The song she chose was one he used to hum without realizing he was doing it. A soft, simple melody he had picked up somewhere along the way. He hummed it while washing dishes, while waiting for the kettle to boil. While driving, she had heard it so many times over the years that it lived somewhere deep in her memory. She just had to teach her hands to find it. Slowly, very slowly, it started to come together. The wrong notes got fewer. The rhythm started to feel natural. She could feel herself getting closer to the version of the song that existed in her head, the version that sounded the way she wanted it to sound. Some nights, when a section came out right, she would sit in the silence afterward and let herself imagine it. She imagined pulling a chair up next to his and sitting down without saying a word. She imagined his confused expression. "What are you doing?" he would say. "You don't play piano." And then she would start. And she imagined his face going quiet, going still, the way it had at the wedding. She was getting close. A few more weeks, maybe less. The first half of the song was clean. The second half just needed a little more time. She just needed a little more time. She did not know yet that time was the one thing they were running out of. She found out on a Tuesday. She had just gotten home from work. Her coat was still on. Her bag was still on her shoulder. She was standing in the hallway of her apartment reaching for the light switch when her phone rang. She saw her mother's name on the screen, and something in her chest already knew. She answered. Anyway, she does not remember much of what was said after the first few words. She remembers sliding down the wall until she was sitting on the floor. She remembers her coat still being on. She remembers the light in the hallway being off the whole time, and not caring enough to turn it on. Her brother was gone. It had moved faster than anyone expected. That is the thing about illness. Sometimes it follows the timeline the doctors give you, and sometimes it does not. Sometimes it makes its own decisions. And there's nothing anyone can do about that. Nothing anyone can say. Nothing that makes it make sense. He was there, and then he was not. And the world just kept going as if that was okay. The days after were a blur. People came and went. There was food on the table that nobody ate. There were conversations happening around her that she heard, but could not follow. She moved through it all like she was underwater. Present, but not really there. Breathing, but not really feeling anything. And the piano, she could not touch it. The small keyboard was still sitting on her dining table exactly where she had left it. She had been practicing just 2 nights before he passed. The sheet music was still open on the same page. She walked past it every day and kept her eyes away from it. The way you keep your eyes away from something that hurts to look at. People told her to keep playing. Of course, they did. They meant well. They said things like, "He would have wanted that. He would have loved knowing you learned." Keep going. For him. She could not explain why those words made her feel worse instead of better. It was not that she did not believe them. It was something harder to name than that. She had not learned the piano for herself. She had not learned it to process grief, or to heal, or to carry on his memory. She had learned it for one reason only, to sit beside him and play that song while he was still alive to hear it. That was the whole point. That was the only point. And now that point was gone. Playing felt like finishing a letter after the person it was written for had already died. What was the use? Weeks passed. The sheet music stayed open on the same page. One night, she could not sleep. That had been happening a lot. She would lie in bed for an hour, 2 hours, staring at the ceiling, her mind going to places she did not want it to go. That night she got up, went to the kitchen to get some water, and on her way back she passed the keyboard. Say, stop it. She stood there in the dark for a long moment, not thinking, not deciding, just standing there. And then slowly, almost without meaning to, she pulled out the chair and sat down. She did not turn the light on. She did not look at the sheet music. She just placed her hands on the keys in the dark, and she began to play. Her fingers found the notes from memory, slowly at first hesitant, careful, like she was afraid of what might happen if she went too fast. The first few bars came out quietly, a little unsteady, but they came. And then the next part, and then the next. She had been so close before he passed, so close that it almost made it worse. The first half of the song she knew completely. The second half, the part she had still been working on. She had to feel her way through. There were moments where her fingers slowed, moments where she almost stopped, but she did not stop. She kept going. And somewhere in the middle of that song, alone in her dark apartment with no one listening, something cracked open inside her. Not in a dramatic way. Not the way people describe grief in movies, with tears streaming and shoulders shaking. It was quieter than that. More like something that had been locked up very tight for weeks, finally just let go. She thought about him standing at that wedding, completely still, eyes soft, listening to a stranger play while the whole room moved around him. She thought about the steps outside, the cool air, the way he had looked at her hands and said those words like they were the most natural thing in the world. Play something for me one day. She played the whole song through, from the first note to the last. No stopping, no starting over. When Ethan did, the apartment was completely silent. She sat there with her hand still resting on the keys, and she did not move for a long time. She had imagined this moment so many times. She had imagined his face, his voice, the way he would react. She had built it up in her mind for months, this one moment where she would finally play it for him and he would hear it, and it would mean something. And instead, she was alone. In the dark, playing to an empty room. But here is the thing she did not expect. It still meant something. Not the something she had planned, not the something she had practiced for, but something real, and something hers, and something she could not have found any other way. She had sat down at that keyboard because of him. She had pushed through every frustrating night because of him. She had kept going when she wanted to stop because somewhere in the back of her mind she could see his face and hear his voice, and that was enough to make her try one more time. He never heard the song, but he was the reason she learned it. And maybe that is its own kind of being heard. She started playing again after that night. Not every day, not on a schedule. Just when she needed to, when the apartment felt too quiet, when she missed him in that sharp, sudden way that hits you out of nowhere, in the middle of a grocery store, or while the kettle is boiling, or when you hear a laugh in a crowd that sounds just like his. She never performed it for anyone. She never posted it anywhere. She never sat down and played it as a tribute at a family gathering while everyone watched. It was not that kind of thing. It was private. Between them. A conversation that only went one way now, but a conversation that still felt like something. His melody, the one he used to hum without knowing, lived on in her hands now, in the muscle memory of her fingers, in the quiet of late nights, when the rest of the world was asleep. It was not the ending she had planned for. Not even close. But then again, most of the things that stay with us forever are not the ones we planned for. They are the ones that happened anyway. The ones that happened because someone we loved said something small and meant it, and we were paying attention. She was paying attention. She always had been. Some songs were never meant to be finished. Some of them were only ever meant to be felt.